just wipe away my mocha mustache. Hey everybody, thanks for coming in for another session with us here at the table at KeepSpace. I've got my good friend Jaideep here, who is really going to come and share his story around what he's been learning about in the investment space, as well as just being with other businesses and just hearing about what is that world like. So man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no worries. Look, I really like you, Jesse. You're a humble, funny and passionate guy, which is a very good combination, I'd say.
Let me give you that $50 I promised you about that.
Hey, it should be yellow.
Haven't you seen kids do this stuff all the time? They just give fake money. So tell me, what's your story, man? What's your background? Just fill me in. Where have you been at since you left uni? Like, what did you study?
Well, I studied a couple of things, and it goes all the way back to 2010.
Wow. Okay.
And this is year 10. I've got to select. There's a bit of a disclaimer that I haven't gone down the path that everyone does, and I had my fair share of trouble in my family. So, anyways, so this is year 10. I've got to select whether I go into medical sciences, engineering sciences, or commerce, or arts. And then I go to my dad, I think I've really thought about this, and my granddad agrees. I think I'm analytical, but I don't want to do science. I know you're a doctor. I know my mum's a doctor. I know my cousins are doctors, but I don't want to do that.
So you come from a family of doctors?
Yes.
Wow. So your dad must have been pretty pissed.
Yeah, he was actually pissed for more than 7 or 8 years.
Really? He was so disappointed that you didn't take up the medical profession like him.
Neither the medical profession nor the engineering profession. Because in India, how things go, well, by the way, I'm from India, if you haven't figured out. In India, how things go is, well, you either go and become a doctor, the second best is go and become an engineer, and then the third best is, nothing.
There's no third best?
There's no third best.
You're either doctor, engineer, or you're just a smart.
You just fuck all. In which case you try and sit all the multiple exams to become a government employee, in which there's multiple scales, and it's a reminder of the archaic British times. So 1.5 million people sit to get employed in, I think, 1,000 positions. So there's 1,000 positions a year for those exams, which, the third ranking, the fuck all people try and get. So there's 1.5 million that give that each year, and there's only 1,000 positions. So for me, from my parents' perspective, doctor, no. Engineer, doesn't want to do that. He can't do it.
So I got to ask, is this in Australia when you're going through this conversation, or are you?
So this is back home in India.
Which part of India is it?
This is Punjab.
Punjab. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So if you go onto Google and Google the 7 wonders of the world, one of them is the Golden Temple. It's literally made of gold. That's where I'm from.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really amazing. So why is the culture, just to touch on this, reflecting back, why is the culture like this, where the status of being a doctor or the status of being an engineer is so important in Indian culture? Why is that such a thing?
It's because, well, for one, I would, in my own thinking, I would say that developed countries, Australia, UK and the US, are usually a generation ahead, and those thoughts and this egalitarian living, that seeps in, but it takes time. It takes a generation or more. And secondly, India's had a long history of, feudal kings and different empires within families. So that developed into what's called the caste system. And that is basically, say for example, 1,000 years ago, if your dad was a feudal landlord. Well, then you're a landlord, and there's a family name attached to your name, and that exists to this day, 1,000 years after that. And if my dad worked as a carpenter or had a shop, well, a certain kind of family name was attached to him, attached to me, and 1,000 years later, it still exists. And then what that's done is segregated these people up by whatever archaic work they did into their family names, and then they only marry within their family name group, right? So a landlord would only marry their kids to another landlord, and they would never accept to marry their kids to someone who 1,000 years ago had a shop, right? No matter if I'm more educated or not. So that divide has just persisted, and that's one of the reasons why there's rampant inequality, and hence if you go back to my parents' generation in the 1980s, education was limited. India wasn't an open economy; it was sort of socialist, and the social government, they taught, well, that we've got agriculture, next step up is manufacturing, and the next step up is services. So for manufacturing we need engineers, and also we need doctors anyway. So they pushed down engineering on everyone. So they weren't, at my parents' time, when they were my age, all that they could think of as a career was a doctor or engineer, and that's why they put that upon me as well. They never explored anything else. There was never anything else.
So you were thinking about this when you're like year 10, what's that? You're like 16 years old or something?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this I figured out over the years.
Yeah, of course. So you're having this conversation with your granddad at that age, and you're like, just this system's all fucked up. This doesn't make sense. Like, is that what your thought process was? Or?
Well, my thought process, there's another factor in there, and that is, my dad's, as much as I hated him a few years ago, I quite love him. So he's, aside from being a doctor full-time, he's also been a part-time real estate investor, developer, and a very successful one at that. So this conversation that I was having with him, that I don't want to do all of this doctor or engineering, I want to do commerce, that actually goes back a couple of years. Yeah, and I remember this moment very well. School vacations, I'm lying on the bed watching some shit cartoon, Japanese fucking cartoon, right?
Anime!
Right? And my granddad says to my dad, well, you have a construction site and all of this and all of, so much stuff happening. Why don't you take him there so that he sees something else and, get him to do something rather than just sit around and do nothing. So that's what my dad did. He dragged me into his car, from when I was asleep. I very clearly remember this. He poured a jug of water on my head, dragged me into his car and said, I'm going to drop you off at the construction site where his business was doing. They were building 40 homes. It was quite a big project for him. And he said, I'll pick you up 12 hours later in the evening. So you just go and see things. And he's the main head person. If you want anything, go and find him. I said, yeah, okay.
How old
Played
were
in
you?
the sand. I was in 8th grade, so that was 2008. I was 13. So I played in the sand, had a look around, did this and that, and then I started to like it. Well, this is better than animation, this is real life. So that's where I really, so when I'm having this conversation with my dad, 10th grade, I'm really falling back upon, all my experiences, thinking about the business and all of that stuff. And so he says no. And then he says, no, you have to, if you don't want to be a doctor, okay, we get that. But second best engineer, third is fuck all, you got to go for the engineer. I said, okay, if I do that, well, I can become a civil engineer or construction related something. That's acceptable to me. So 2 years, I was sort of choked and forced into doing that. And at the end of those 2 years, at the end of my year 12, a lot of things happened. The local government changed, and how real estate works is there's lots of local regulations and rules, and the new government that came in, they just flipped the rules upside down overnight, and it's just very funny how things work in India. Rules change, then people complain, then there's a commission, then there's remediation, and then by that time it's been 10 years and you start living with the rules. What happens here is you have recommendation, commission, and this and that, and then legislation. Nah. The other way around.
So they'll throw it at you. You bitch about it.
Yeah.
In India, so you'll get the rule no matter what, and then you just gotta say, look, this is a good rule. It's not that bad, and it's already been like a couple of years.
No. It's not like it's a good rule to say this is a rule. We benefit from it. The government does, or the people who made the rule personally benefit from it, and you gotta fucking suck it up. If you don't. We're going to take what you have.
Wow. That's government politics in India.
Yes, it is. So that just made my dad's business model kaput.
It wiped him out.
It did, overnight. It just made the whole thing not workable at all.
So, oh wow.
So that meant suddenly the life that I was thinking for myself, studying civil engineering and perhaps, later on studying commerce again and getting into dad's business, expanding that because he's doing that part-time, right? I just blew up. It just disappeared. And
because it's just because it was so unstable? It just didn't give you confidence that was the direction to go?
It's one of those left tail risks that exists in developing countries. Yeah. Like I had I was engaging with an organisation. They've got an asset in a developing country, and over the past 2 years, what's happened is I was having a conversation with them about some financing, which is perhaps very beneficial for them on a Friday. Over the weekend, news comes out, and on the Monday, well, there's no more asset. The government's fucked up. They just do that. It's one of those left tail risks. Just things happen. So you just got to suck it up. So,
sorry, that's mind-blowing. That's absolutely mind-blowing. Like, in Australia, if you have bought a property on a piece of land and Landmark has, made the titles, made that pretty clear, that's what's structured and your name of that. It's like the legislation of what it would be to change any of that. It takes a while for that to go through Parliament. But in India, you're like, they'll drop that down based on whatever rulings, whatever legislation you got there, and then it just
legislation, regulation, in a lot of cases, if the regulation isn't in paper and in front of you explicit, it's implicit. Wow. You get told, you get a phone call, you get told, well, you remember this change of land use fee you paid to make this agricultural land into residential land, upon which you've already spent millions of dollars to build all of this. Well, we don't like it anymore. So that change of land use fee, on a back date, we're going to change that to 15 times. So you pay that, or you can see an excavator coming up your way. That'll demolish everything you've put in there. So you just got to do it.
This isn't like
this is
vendetta
of
anger.
Example.
This is actually true.
This is a true thing.
Wow.
And my dad had to go through all of that.
And your dad went through this, and he's had some serious setbacks. But then you just like, I don't know if this is the life for me.
Oh no! I still had no choice.
Oh, you still had to do this.
I still had no choice. So
how did you go from that phase, finishing school, to getting to Australia and all that?
So I'll cut a lot of the detail.
Yeah.
Now, so what happened is he said, well, civil engineering's off. It's not an option anymore. So electronics engineering is a good one. A lot of people get jobs after that. You go and do that, and you got to go and do that in this university. It's a good university. You can get in and all of that. So he sent me 3,000 k's away, and I'd never been away from home and all of that. A year in, I said, nah, this isn't for me. Nah, totally not for me. I'd rather just then go to classes for this. I'd rather fucking sit in the pothouse and just smoke all day. Nah. So I came back home, and that was a big stigma for my family to deal with, and myself as well. And then a few months after that, it's been quite a bit of a blur, and I had severe mental health issues after that. Wow. So by this time, what had happened in the background was that kaput business model was troubling a lot for my dad, and the liabilities, well, essentially he was bankrupt, right? Mm-hmm. So, and you can't say because you've got, things involved, and if you do, you lose everything, and so lots of complexity. So I've got an aunt who lives here. She's a doctor as well. Go figure.
Family of doctors.
So, and she's got a really good life and all of that. And my dad got inspired by that and said, well, I'm a doctor too. I do all of this in my part-time. I can go to Australia too and just leave all of this in my past. I don't want to be like a crab. You know what crabs do when you put 4 or 5 crabs in a bucket? As soon as one of them is able to get out, the other ones pull them back down.
Ah, the crab okay, that's it. So, is that an analogy in India, the crab?
It's actually a Filipino analogy.
Oh, okay.
which I picked up in a pub.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Nice.
So that's how he felt, and he just wanted to get out of there. So he said to me, well, apart from him, I was the only one who knew I didn't know where all the puzzle pieces fit, but I knew what the pieces were and all of that, right? And if he wasn't there to manage the stuff, I was the only one to know what to do and how to do it, and even take guidance or instructions and be able to do it. So that meant that so I've come back from university, I've dropped out. This is my bachelor's degree. I've enrolled into a online or a correspondence based, so an online distance learning degree, right? And I'm sitting at home, I'm depressed and I'm not happy, and then he goes, okay, I've got to go and make a future for ourselves. I don't want to deal with these liabilities for the next 10 years of my life. I want to be done with them now. And this future is the way we're going to go. So
and the future was
Australia, yeah. So then he's got to study for some exams that he's got to give to tell the Australian authorities, well, I'm a doctor in India, but now I'm a doctor in Australia. So to equivalent, to make both of them equivalent.
He had to do his IELTS 7.
He had to do the English. He had to actually pick up his doctor books again.
Oh.
Study, give those exams. So he ended up giving 4 doctor exams.
Just smashed them off.
Yeah, he just smashed them off, and they're like.
That's amazing. That's so good.
He's
a really smart guy. Just.
And he did that when he was 45, right?
Wow.
To pick up the books, and this is something which, to become a doctor in Australia, an Australian graduate does 2 degrees, right? So this is equivalent to doing that 2nd degree. And he did that at 45, while also working and having all of those troubles at the back of his head, and people ringing him and saying, "Oh, we'll fucking kill you if you don't return our money," or stuff like that.
While going all through this drama.
While he's also bankrupt.
Wow, that's quite intense.
So he left all of that bankruptcy piece, and we never had to go through that. Essentially on paper, I would say my assessment was that we've got to deal with this as we're bankrupt. So I had to go through all of the mess for about 2 years. Make sure legal liabilities are all dealt with and all of that stuff.
What year was this? This
is 2015.
So, it's 2015.
So this is now 2015. And all this while I've got my own troubles. I don't speak with my mum at all. I rarely speak with my dad. Only when I've got to ask him what to do and stuff like this. And where do I get this money? Where do I give that money? It was all.
So you were like running a business with your dad while trying to deal with all these issues in the business that legislation and probably some family bad calls were made. And while your dad looks and sets up to get his visa for a doctor position in Australia.
Yep. Wow. And then in late 2015 he left for Australia, and then I was alone to finish up whatever mess we had. I just had to tie it up such that there's no possible legal liabilities. There's places where you got to...
How old were you when this was all going on?
I was 20... I was 20 years old.
You're 20 years old and you have that kind of responsibility on you.
Yeah, there's lots of things that I did, which at that time created what's called cognitive dissonance, where, you know, you've learned some values, but what you've done conflict with those values, and then you've got to live with it. So it was a very hard time for me, and it took me 3 years after that to realize what I've done and why I've done it. I had to do lots of things, you know, and at times you have to go and think, okay, I've got this sum of money. These people, the labourers that I employ, they're the lowest
at
of the
20.
socio. Yes, they're the lowest of the
At 20
socio.
years old, you got staff. Holy shit.
These are the lowest socioeconomic people you can ever find, right? And if
Yeah,
I've got
right.
to pay them today, they're waiting for me.
Yeah.
If they don't have money, they don't have food. That's straight as. So if I go and give them the money, pay them, well then I won't have money to get this paint supply or this thing or that thing, and then what will happen is that I won't be able to do this thing. That means this money won't come in, and that means this liability won't get paid off, and that means this person who's threatened me with a police complaint, a criminal complaint, will not happen, and that means when I apply for my Australian visa, I will not get that. So okay,
Shit.
I can't pay these low socioeconomic people who don't have money for food. So how do I deal with this?
At 20.
Yes.
That's a lot of stress for a 20. Dude, do you know how many 20-year-olds I know here in Australia that don't even have that kind of depth of knowledge of business because they're too busy playing fucking video games and just chilling on their ass? That's so impressive. I just have to say, Jaideep, I admire the fact that you had to go. Now look, under circumstances, that's a lot of pressure for a young individual, but I could understand at least you had the opportunity to have such exposure at such a young age, where I know so many wouldn't have the opportunity. In saying that, it's a kind of a shit situation.
Yes, it is.
It's a shit situation you're
it is.
in. That you have to, like, dad just drops this mess on you because he trusts you enough while he goes and tries and sets the family up in an entirely foreign country.
And
That's
he's by
huge.
himself. He's by himself for a year.
Yeah, wow. You're going through this process. What happened from there?
Well, things went well to okay-ish, and somewhere in the meantime I gave my IELTS and all of that, and when I gave that, I also taught other people, you know, when they were going to sit for their IELTS. I was an English teacher in between that for a couple of months to make my own pocket money, because, well, while money was coming in, it was also going out. I had no money.
Yeah.
So
Family, God. Sorry.
And that was actually a good thing as well. That was my first job ever. I made $200 a month.
Awesome. I know it sounds like poverty rates is going to be calling our door, but for India, I could imagine, yeah.
So from there, I land here on the 6th of September 2016. That's 5 years yesterday. And even when I was trying to convince my dad and my family to, you know, okay, let me go to Australia. What they were going through their heads as well, for a long time, he's sort of been like a liability, where, you know, he's going through depression and all of this, and then yes, you know, he's got to deal with the business and all of that, but we're not sure of his capabilities. You know, we don't have confidence in him. So people would come up and say, well, a liability is easier to maintain in India rather than maintaining it in Australian dollars, right? So India is much cheaper than Australia. So people would come up and say that, and, you know, I would listen, and I would have to live with that. But when I came here, my dad asked me, what would I do? You know, my family is quite respected back in India, and what would they tell other people? That what have I gone to Australia to do? Clean toilets, mop floors, what? I said, well, I don't fucking care. I'm in this deep shit environment, and also deep shit head space, right? And I'm seeing a psychiatrist and all of that, and then this one day I read a newspaper article which said there was this real well-known political figure, his brother committed suicide. And he says in the news article that, my brother had severe depression for 10 years and he had treatment, but at the end of the day, he got a pistol and killed himself. Well,
This is India?
yeah, this is India.
Yeah, wow.
And I think to myself, well, if I look back, and this is sort of going into mental health issues, if I look back, I don't remember being happy since, year 8 or year 9. I had no friends, literally no friends that I could trust. And this was in 2015, I'm looking back thinking 7 years I haven't been happy. So by that analogy in the newspaper article, I've only got 3 more years until I fucking kill myself. So that's not the future I want for myself. I got to change stuff. And for that to happen, well, I've got to change my environment first. That's the easiest way to change stuff. And that's how I convinced my parents to allow me to buy a ticket to come to Australia.
So glad you're here, Jaideep. So glad you're here.
So when I get here, as all Indians do, I ended up at a petrol station. As a casual.
You're working at a petrol. Okay.
This was a Woolworths one.
Wow.
A few kilometers outside of the city, and
That's where I started here.
yeah, that's where I started. And I said to myself, well, forget about the past. All my life, I've been critically assessing things, and I think I'm okay. I'm analytical and all of that, and I know how to take building blocks and by trial and error put them together. So if I'm to have a successful life in Australia, what's the building blocks for that? Well, I've got to understand the Australian culture, the way of life, yes. I've got to engage with Aussies and not fucking Indians just like me. Well, that just means that I'll be living in Little India in Perth. I don't want to do that. I'm not that kind of a person. Right? I want to engage and learn and grow. So working at a petrol station would be great because A, I'd be serving lots of people, 2, I'd be conversing with them, and 3, I'd be working with Aussies. So it ticks all of the boxes, right? I'll gain that building block which I need to put up my tower, right? So I did that for I think 6 months, and I became part-time, and I would go and even on my days off when I don't get paid, voluntarily go and learn things. People laugh at me and go, "Are you fucking mad? You don't get paid for that. Why do you go?"
Who would tease you about learning something? Who were they?
Other people from the same community, the same,
From India.
yeah, from India and from those parts, and usually they would come here on a student visa, and they've got other things to do. They've got to have enough money to pay their fees and stuff like that, and they've got student loans, so they're not looking to take a step back to make a leap forward. Right.
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're actually struggling with day-to-day life, so a lot of times they're not able to see the why you put in time and effort for learning.
Amazing.
So all the time it was for me, take a step back to leap in front. And so from all of the going in voluntarily and learning stuff, had a good repo and all of that. So suddenly I had to go back to India to give the exams for that distance learning degree I was doing. And I did that, and then when I came back, Woolworths needed a relief manager for their petrol station in Kalgoorlie. And right at the time, there was a very famous incident. It was quite, the media had splashed it up quite a lot. It was a Aboriginal boy who had been chased by someone, and he ended up getting
killed.
Yeah.
I remember that article.
Yeah,
and
yes.
it really riled up the community.
Yes, it did. And Kalgoorlie is full. It's Kalgoorlie is, there's lots of Aboriginals.
Yeah.
And so there were protests there, and no one wanted to go. And I said, well, I see those protesters are peaceful. What have they got to do with me, right? I actually support their cause. And I've always, I've always thought, from the day that I landed, and I don't, when you think about Australia, you think white Australia. You never think,
I get
First Nation Australia. So, from the first time I landed here, I started going out to pubs and not clubs, pubs and taverns to make friends with Aussies, and one of the first thoughts that actually came to my head about Aboriginals and what the government is doing with them is that you've got some people may get offended by this analogy, but you've got a collective mindset in a group of people, which is similar to where the Westerners were 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, more than 2,000 years ago, right? At 1,000 years before Christ, there was no God in a deity or in a book. We used to preach and pray animals because the bird could fly and we can't, and all of that stuff. So, and that's the Aboriginal culture, right? The emu and the kangaroo and the Milky Way galaxy and the snake and all of that. Mm-hmm. So, how do you take someone with a collective mindset that is 3,000 years prior to where you are at, and say, oh, we're picking you up 3,000 years in the future, and here's $200 by the way, spend it wisely. It just doesn't work. How do you expect that to work? I mean, we've got our collective understanding of money from the barter system and the money, and the first money was the Florentine, and that was 1400s. We've got 700 years of coins and money and understanding of that, and passing down from generation to generation. They haven't.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I did my high schooling in Tom Price, which is another very large Aboriginal community. I actually like Aboriginal people a lot. The native ones that live in still their native land, yes, because they still have a connection to the land, they still adhere to cultural standards. Now, like every culture, it's not perfect. There are challenges with them, but the ones I grew up with, I went to school with, and have respect for the families that are still there. And there's an approach to trying to address the needs towards education, and then there's also addressing the respect of where their family members have come from, and adhering to practices that they still want to keep, which is their culture, alive. And that's understandable. English Australians also have their culture, Indian Australians, Greeks, Italians, they all have a different structure. Usually it comes around food. Food is usually what brings culture together. So obviously the Aboriginals have their way cooking up the
dampers, yes.
Yeah, damper, kangaroo tail, goanna, getting that all nice and fresh off the smoking coals and just having a chew. And I get what you're saying, and you're right. There is a challenge with that. So you're in. You end up going to Kalgoorlie?
Yes, I did.
So you went to Kalgoorlie, and you're conversing with these amazing people. You're building relationships. You're expanding yourself away from just the culture you grew up with. That's actually, I have respect for that, because to leave your culture, the safest thing is usually, and I know lots of Chinese people, lots of Singaporeans, lots of Malaysians, lots of Indonesians that come to Australia and they stick with their culture because it's comfortable and safe, and they keep a monoculture attitude, as I call it, and that monoculture attitude only has a limited insight to the diversity of wealth that's around them, but because it's foreign, they usually don't engage with it, and then they'll take their experience of living in another country and go back home with a sense of hopefully enlightenment to what they can advance in their own careers back home. So you're like expanding outside of that, pulling away, seeing what's new, and So what happened? You coming back from there? How long did you stay in Kalgoorlie?
So I wasn't there for too long. It was about, I think, 2 months. And,
Oh, it's 2 months. Okay, you're there for 2 months, and then where are you going to nick off to?
And even in Kalgoorlie, I got a car, a hotel, $100 a day for food. I was like, fuck, this is great.
It's a step up.
And I went out, went to the visitor centre and went out with some elders on their weekend, fine, and had the kangaroo tail for the first time.
How'd you do?
Yeah, a bit of an
Burnt and
experience.
crispy.
A bit of an experience, but the dampers were great.
Yeah, that's good.
So I put on lots of photos on the work Facebook, and everyone now wants to go to Kalgoorlie and all of that stuff. So I'd done my job, and I came back. They said, well, you pick where you want to work. We'll make you part of the management team. I said, yeah, okay, fine. I want to work with this guy. I said, there's no position there, but we can create one for you. So I become a trainee manager, and I did that for, I think, another year. Yep, another year. While doing that, I saved up some money, put that in the stock market, and I realized, well, I don't understand enough about this to do this. So
Hang on a second. You say that so casually. I just throw this money in the stock market. Where did that? What made you? I mean, you've done all this confidence building with your crazy business that you had back with your family in India. You're now like running your own ship. You start getting some money. You start looking at stocks.
yes.
Were you looking at stocks when you were in Kalgoorlie?
No, not exactly. It's one of my uncles, who, by the way, is already here in Australia. He lives in Melbourne. He made some money in stocks, and at that time, the bank rates, the CD rates were, I don't know, 1.5 or something. And my dad had some money piling up because he didn't know what to do. He's new here. And he hasn't got time to understand investments and all of that. And while he knows stuff back home, he doesn't know anything here. So he asked me. And that's how I looked into it. And I had a few ideas. I thought, well, there's a lot of... I remember there was a lot of bad negative news reaction on Harvey Norman because Amazon said we're going to come into Australia. And I thought, well, yeah, they've said that, but it takes fucking 6 months. They're not going to come tomorrow. It's not fucking... They're not taking Harvey Norman's revenue tomorrow. It's just going to take some time. So why the negative share price? We should buy this. So I discussed that with my uncle, and he said, well, this is a good idea. And then he told me some tricks. I said, okay, I'll apply those tricks. And then I thought, well, yeah, these tricks are good. I don't understand how they work. So that's when I thought, well, I don't understand this. And, I am analytical. I've established that. I've regained my confidence. Okay, I've got a couple of building blocks that I wanted to, and I know I can study. I've got a bit of that pedigree. Let's go to university. Let's go back and do it properly, because I haven't done a degree. I didn't do my bachelor degrees like everyone else does. Go to university, live there, and all of that. No, I didn't do it properly. So I told my dad I want to do a master's in finance, and this is the degree I want to do. And he goes, well, at that time we were not residents, we were still on a visa. So the question was, well, if you do this degree, how will you become a resident? How do you become a citizen? I said, well, this or that way, but I don't know, I'll figure it out. He said, no, I've got a clinic, I've got a GP surgery. If you do this diploma or degree, then you can work with me, or I can get you a job within the healthcare sector, and that will get you your residency. I said, no, I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, we did that back in India.
Yes.
I know where you're going here.
Yes. No, I don't want to do that. And he says, well, I don't want to pay your fees. I said, okay.
Oh, wow.
So I had some money saved up. I paid for my first semester, and during my first semester, that was full time because I was on a visa, and I worked full time.
What university did you choose?
Curtin.
You had to pay for your own Curtin degree.
I would have liked to go to UWA, but it was 93,000, and Curtin was altogether, I don't know, 60 something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bloody UWA.
And I lived in Mandurah, so UWA was another 20 minutes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
Far out. Okay.
yeah.
Bloody hell. Okay.
So the first semester was full time, 4 units, and my job was full time. And this is a master's degree, so your classes are in the evening and all of that stuff. So basically, I was living on the freeway, and I realized I'm better off putting a mattress in the back of my truck, which is what I did. And I went through that, and I did okay enough or good enough to have confidence in myself that I will not drop out of this degree, because again I had 2 degrees, and first I dropped out, second I didn't do it properly and all of that. So paid for my second semester fees, and in the meantime, some of the money I had saved up. Again, the CD rates are fuck all, right? I don't want to put it in there, and I have a passion for cars, and I had grown up watching Top Gear, and then I grown up watching, there's this car show where people buy cars and fix it and they sell it. And I said, well, I can do that too. I want to give it a go. What will I lose? If I lose, well then I'll have to sell my soul to the devil and go to my dad and ask for money, which is something I can do, and a lot of people can't. So if I'm okay with that risk, if I'm okay with that outcome, I'm okay to taking a risk here. So I go to an auction and buy 2 cars. Yeah.
Wow.
And mind you, when I went to Kalgoorlie, I was less than a year in this country. And when I went to go to the auction and buy cars, I'm just about a year and a half in this country. And everything that I've learned that from a pub.
From a pub?
Yes.
Wow.
So, long story short, I have the cars for a couple of months, and then I buy another one. I get it on the cheap from a mutual contact. And I make some money, and by selling those cars and keeping the worst of them, which is actually the most basic of them, which is why I drive that little tray top ute, I was able to pay my fees for the second semester.
So that's how you paid. So you paid your degree
Not all of it,
your semester fees by selling cars. So
yeah, buying and selling cars. Only 3.
That's
Bought
very.
and sold 3 cars.
I mean, it's not an e-commerce business, but the concept of entrepreneurship is stupidly insane. Stupidly insane. Like the amount. But this is. Australians have a very comfortable lifestyle. My lifestyle of growing up is nothing like yours. Absolutely nothing like yours. But my adoration and respect for what you've had to do to get what you've got so far is insane. Like, I had the pleasure and luxury of just having a HEX debt. And I know that my HEX debt would just sit on my back for 10 years until I achieved a revenue of income that could sustain a payment back to that HEX debt. You're like buying secondhand cars to sell because they're like, I want my money now, bitch. You gotta pay me.
Yes.
Like, that's not everyone had yes, you had your father and you could go back.
That's why I could take risks, yes.
But you just like, I'm gonna go my way. Quite stubborn you are, but okay. So what happened? So you paid off a couple semesters doing this process. What happened then?
So it was important buying and selling those cars, because then I could pay off another semester. And that semester, I actually wanted to leave my full-time job and move to Curtin University. Stop fucking going up and down the freeway, wasting 2 hours a day, and just focus on myself and my studies, and more so, myself, and get myself properly out of the mental trauma and stress and depression.
Yeah, look, doing this, buying and selling cars, trying to study at the same time, doing a full-time job, that's a lot of pressure for an individual. Like, you're 23?
Yeah, I was 23.
Yeah, you're 23 years old, man. Like, Yeah, I don't know many 23-year-olds that sort of go under that kind of stress. So, what a year. Couldn't you just get a transfer with the job into another placement? Like if they were offering you at Mandurah, was that an option for you, or you just thought?
There was an option, but by that time, the state management already knew that I was in a full-time degree, so that they thought, well, this guy's not going to be with us long term, right? He's not studying a degree to work at a petrol station.
Right. So they stopped committing long-term focus with you.
Yeah.
Knowing that this is the future you want to go for.
And again.
Which is fair.
Where I was, I had created, a good environment which I supported them and they supported me, such that I could do a full-time degree. So there's lots of sort of inefficiencies or synergies that you find and exploit to make it all happen, and nothing goes to plan, so you just fucking roll with the punches.
Okay, there's a story there, but we won't dive into that one. So you're going through this degree, you end up coming to Perth, and you're settling things down here, and how's it going from there?
So things have been good. I finished the degree, mid-degree I got my residency, so that meant a lot of that pressure was off, because some of the requirements of me as a visa holder were done with. So
you jumped on a HECS structure then?
No, I couldn't do that.
But you're a citizen, so...
No, after residency, the citizenship comes sometime
PR,
after that.
PR,
yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
So, I went to part-time. I went to studying part-time, and then that's when I decided, okay, I want to know more. This degree is good, but it's not good enough. At the end, that's where I'm at. That's where I found myself. And there's something called the CFA. It's a Chartered Financial Analyst. It's a designation, and it's quite revered. It's quite tough. And I thought, well, okay. If I was, my peers, my friends, they would take on stuff like this, and I've lost my confidence. I've lost myself. I've had bad years, and now I'm coming back up. So now I'm ready to give this a go. Now I think I can go and give this a go. And a partner helped me quite a lot in doing that. So I did part-time university, started studying for the CFA designation, and when I was done with university, I got an internship, and from that internship, I converted that into a position, an analyst. And the stuff was very interesting. This was at the investment bank that I'm at now. And
what investment bank is this?
So this is Bluemount Capital.
Bluemount's Capital, cool.
And I'll go in a bit about them. And so they appreciate my viewpoints. So, I'm able to put forth what I think, articulate stuff or whatever. And they say, well, this is a bit more than your normal fresh out of university guy who doesn't want to say things because he's anxious or whatever, right? So, and then because I network and I like talking and meeting new people, I was able to bring in some business opportunities to consider, right? And they thought, wow, this is great, and these are credible business opportunities to consider. It's a different story that some of them didn't happen, but so they said, well, you're doing good and we like you, so we'll bump you up to an associate. So that's where I am now. And Bluemount Capital, well, they're a mid-market capital markets firm. So when I say mid-market, I mean not the top, not the bottom, in the middle. And capital markets is well, that's investments, right? So everyone knows the stock market. The stock market is actually if I put that in a classification, that's called equity capital markets, right? Because, so for example, you have a company has some sources of finance, right? Everything that the company has, all the assets, they have to be financed, or they come out of something, right? So for example, you have a company and you take your laptop and work for that company. Well, that laptop is now an asset of the company, and it's financed by equity. You know, the money that you spent to buy that laptop, right? So yeah, easy concept. And now your company is expanding, so it goes on to the bank and gets some debt to buy another laptop. Right? So one laptop is equity, one laptop is debt. So there's two sources of capital, equity and debt. So there's an equity capital market and there's a debt capital market. That's it.
And you work in both of those markets?
So we work in both of those, and it's what in the industry is called a generalist firm. We're not specialized, although we have our specialized regions within different offices. So we've got offices around Australia, and of lately, what I've been working on quite deeply is in the debt capital markets. So, for example, for a small company, it goes to a bank to get some loan. For a large company, a bank may not want to lend to that company the full amount of whatever that it wants, right? Just because there's risk limits to a bank and stuff like that.
So, just to catch here what you're saying. So you're at Bluemount Capital, and you've got debt, equity, and debt equity. No. Wait, equity market and debt equity.
Equity market and debt market.
Okay, sorry. Equity market. I'm a bit of a dumbass. So there's equity market and there's debt markets.
Yes.
And so debt markets is where, like you said, I go out and I want to set up a loan. I could go to a bank. I would file my profit and loss statement. I'll file my last couple of years of transactions, my last couple of years of P&Ls, and then I would go and show them my, if I have outstanding debts for the ATO for my BAS statements, they will make an assessment if I am qualified to take whatever that amount is. Usually that amount can be anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000. Happy days.
Yep.
Loan will be approved, serviceability is done, and plus their interest on top. So but you're saying there's another part of that you're in. What is that part?
So that part is, let's take the example of Woolworths. Okay. So you would think Woolworths is such a big company. Everyone understands what it does. If Woolworths needs debt, you would go to a bank, right? And there's four large banks, and you say, okay, there's 10 banks in Australia, right? All 10 of them have made loans to IGA, all 10 of them have made loans to Coles, all 10 of them have made loans to Woolworths and smaller grocery shops as well. Now Woolworths says, well, we want to actually buy another grocery, we want to go and buy Asda, right? And we need debt. So, for example, and they go to CommBank and say, we need 10 billion of debt, we want to go and buy Asda. Well, CommBank will say, of all the money that we are loaning people, we've already given the grocery sector 10%. Our risk limit is 10%, so we can't give you money. So then Woolworths has to go and find that debt somewhere else. So rather than going to an institution which is regulated by some policies and is in a box, they can go to investors, the whole wide world, the wide world of investors, where some of them have a box that they have to fit their investments into, some of them don't. You go out to the investors and say, well, we want debt, this is what we are willing to offer, here are all the documents, you study it, and you tell if you want it or not, if you're willing to give us the money or not.
So it's just a straight up, it's almost like a pitch deck, but it's showing the
it's quite
opportunity
detailed.
Is it, what did you call it?
It's called an
information memorandum?
Investment memorandum, yes.
Yeah, right.
They're different words, but usually it goes for IM.
IM,
yes.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
Yes.
And so I was asked to actually do an IM. I've heard of information memorandum, investment memorandum. It's an IM. Okay. So under an IM, which you're the one who's usually helping create these documents, or you're like,
I'm usually creating them, yes.
yeah, oh, that's
There's a lot of
quite a
cut and
task.
paste. There's a lot of cut and paste, and there's multiple parties to this: the company, the lawyers, some other lawyers, lots of things.
So what's the difference between a pitch deck and an an investment memorandum? What's the core difference between the two?
So a pitch deck is usually a public document. Usually, you can have it under NDA as well, where you don't want to share all of it. And an IM is a very detailed document, and it is only shared after a non-disclosure agreement. The IM actually has the guts of it. It's very dense, so someone reading the IM can't straight away understand what you do and how you do your business. But for example, if KeepSpace wants to raise equity, right? The pitch deck would be high level about the business, about the people involved, what the business model is about, the industry, potential growth opportunities, growth rates, high level, one or two graphs about profitability, and some pictures and illustrations. Yeah, 20 slides, good enough.
It's the average document.
Yeah,
that's right.
Right, so a pitch deck is like a business case, not high level, no detail at all, and
It's usually made, like a pitch deck's usually made to create excitement, interest, to set the conversation.
So again, I'm going to say something. I'm going to use an analogy, which some people might find a bit offending, but I've picked this up from an old person, right?
Sure.
Hence, in my conscience, I can attribute it to them. It's not my fault. Okay. So for marketing and investment, there's two documents: a teaser, a pitch deck, which is initially to market investment, and a teaser is just that, a teaser. When a nice girl has got a skirt on, give a bit of a tease, right? That's you pull it up above your knees. That's a teaser, right?
Okay.
And a pitch deck is you sort of swirl around, give a bit of a tease of the back, a bit of a tease of the neck, a bit of a pout, right? So the bloke comes to you. So I'm using someone else's analogy, right?
There are females that will definitely be watching this, so female founders. But anyway, okay. So
don't sideline me. Don't pepper spray me.
okay. So in your analogy, you're saying pitch deck is mostly just to get the conversation started, but the information memorandum is more depth of that.
The information memorandum is within that analogy. The information memorandum is what you tell your boyfriend.
Yeah, right. I see. So then you're creating these documents, which I could imagine would be quite time consuming.
Yes. I mean, IMs take, so for example, a teaser, it's very important in a teaser to actually get the narrative and the main bits right, because what can end up happening is that you can create a teaser which is too broad, and then the investors that get to see it, they don't know what this is for, and because they get, if they're a good investor, right, they'll get lots of these teasers every day. They've then got to see, okay, is this worth our time? Because this is a knowledge industry. Is this worth our time to dig into this or not? So if your teaser is too narrow, it may be niche. If your teaser is too broad, well, then the people would think, well, how to think about this or what to do here. There's another one. I'll put this in this pile. There is the next one, right? So
it's very similar to government grants. You get heaps of government grants. You got to go through them, and you literally just, if they don't grab them in the first 5 minutes, in the bin.
It's a marketing document, right? Yeah. And so alongside the teaser is a public document. If you want more eyes to see it, it can't be upon an NDA. No, it just not. Yeah.
So you're going through this process. You're writing these up, because you're working in the investment space. there's a lot of interest and intrigue towards founders who like to have investors that are founder friendly, as they would say. But it seems to be, oh, sorry, I don't mean to go off tangent here, but my point is like, and this is where you're at now. You're working through the space. You're working with Bluemount, and how is that environment like now? Like, how's that?
Well, it's you know, it's an intense industry. There's lots of deals, and you know, when you get something done, that's a deal. So you know, the industry jargon is deals, and so there's lots of deals around waiting to happen. Just because the equity markets, the stock markets, are doing well, and that means if you need money, the investors are willing to give you money and stuff like that. So there's lots happening in the market, and where we are at in Western Australia, it's a mineral-rich state, and commodity prices, they have a cycle. If you ever studied economics, you would have known about a business cycle. Each business or each sector has its own cycle. The commodities have a cycle which does this for a long time and then does this for some time. So it seems like we're in here, we're in the top. So lots happening in the WA market as well.
So we covered a little bit on debt equity, where debt markets, sorry, God, I keep backing up. So there's, because I don't know this space. So, all right, so debt market is like, you go for a loan, if you can't get a loan because they max out the percentage of what they consider as the risk for the banks, and they go to investors to be able to try and take the debt, and they use information memorandums to begin the conversation, and then contracts are probably established after that.
Yes, teasers and pitch decks to establish to start the conversation, and then information memorandum for the ones who say, yes, we want to have a look under the hood.
And then if they go through that, then it's a term sheet.
Yeah, so usually an information memorandum, so that's where equity and debt sort of differ, right? In equity, you're usually looking for, sometimes you're looking for a number of investors, sometimes you're looking for a investor. When you're looking for a number of investors, you have to structure the term sheet first, and that's within the IM, the Information Investment Memorandum. So there isn't a separate term sheet for each investor. When you have products which are for a number of investors, when you're looking for one investor, well, then they'll negotiate with you. That's
So okay. Still trying to get my head around this. So you've got the debt market to be able to just get a debt, which is, I'm assuming they will take security of something within the business.
yes.
To be able to then state the amount will be given based on an interest rate, term frame, off you go.
Yep.
And that transaction's done, commission fees given back to the guy who organized it all.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
So then on the equity side, that sounds more like when you're doing a crowdfund arrangement, or if you're doing a straight up, you're doing more of a pitch deck and you're going to be offering shares, and there is a term sheet after the IM for that, which constructs, but you're saying the term sheet is from the actual company? I usually thought term sheets were from the investor.
So again, it depends where do you sit, what kind of investment do you want. So for example, when you are, say for example, if you are crowdfunding, right? Mm-hmm. You put out some terms. You say, this is the boundaries that we want to play in, right? And then people who like that or who like you, they'll say, okay, these are the boundaries we can play in. We like that. Let's talk. But if you're a startup and you go to a VC, you can't dictate terms, because it's a negotiation. A term sheet is a negotiation. It's no different than having a term sheet in some contract. So it's a negotiation. If you're negotiating with one party, well, then there's more of a negotiation. If you are one and others are 50 and you're larger than them, well, there's no negotiation.
I'm so glad we're talking about this, because this is probably wake up to. Now, when we met, just for everyone to know, I did a pitch presentation at a place where look, in all honesty, I was fucking around. I just, I put.
Well, that's why I asked you, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah, I was just like, I got some friends that asked, why don't you pitch KeepSpace at this event and just see where it lands? And we did, and we kind of looked a bit out of place. Like, it was more like startups presenting, and then we were a bit more down the road, as you would say.
Very startup. So you can say startup to the third degree.
Yeah.
You know that.
We were like, yeah, a bit further down that space. And so then, knowing that you've been in this and you've been building a network, I've always found it very interesting to see the mindset of investors in the equity side, their expectations, and what that looks like for founders and early stage CEOs and directors who have a love for the business, have a passion for what they're trying to bring a product to market, trying to create something that they care about into the world, and then they enter into this space which you are very well aware of. They don't have enough coin and they got to make a way to make it work, and they enter into these discussions where they share, hey, why don't you try to raise money? Why don't you try and get an investment? Why don't you try and maybe set something up? And so I know so many of my friends that went through this process and they were like, all right, we're going to do a pitch presentation. We're going to talk to the market. We're going to try and raise capital. And they enter into this capital world. And when the ones who I had known that entered into this capital world back in 2015, 2014, 2016, that kind of time frame, and I have conversations with them today, and I ask them, all right, you were really successful. You were on Shark Tank. You got funds from Perth Angel Group. You got funds by a private investor. You went through this. The conversation has commonly been, not all of them, but just commonly, has been, if I were to go back in time and do it again, I would have not taken the investment because it added complexities, it added dramas, it added difficulties. The stress that they put on the business based on our current size was too heavy. The amount of discussions I had to have with the shareholders over actually building a business was too many, and it was a very interesting process to look at since 2016 to today. So being someone who's on the other side, and I know you're working in an investment firm, but what's your thoughts on this? This is just what I've heard from a founder side, but from someone who works as an analysis with the investor sides. What's your thoughts on that?
So it's a very common thing, and what I relate this to is I'm going to say this to I said this to you yesterday and before we started the shoot, is a principal agency problem. The founder of the startup, he is the owner of the startup, and he is also employed by the startup, right? So he is the principal and the agent who's working for the principal, right? So for example, if your dad has a business and then he employs you as CEO, well, you are working for your dad, right? He's the principal, you're the agent working for him in running the business. So when you have a shareholder or an investor come in, that changes, that relationship changes. You then become part of a group who are principals, who own the business, and you're also the agent who is going to be running the business for the principals. So it can get tough because you've got to have an understanding of what is the cost of having an investment. So usually people think that raising equity, and this is pretty normal in Perth. A lot of firms, they just raise equity like that, and they raise quite a lot of it with their eyes shut. They think there's no cost to equity. There is a cost. There's a cost because you've got to keep your shareholders happy, right? Because you've got to provide them some, recurring reporting, quarterly reporting, if not annual. Quarterly is what I would say is expected, yes. if you have an investor come into your business and your startup and they want weekly updates, they're a wrong kind of investor for this. They're looking to, it's for a business to have a board and a chairman. You have a board meeting once a month, right? Why is the shareholder asking for updates weekly? So that's wrong. So when you have a shareholder come in, you have a different type of principal group. You're still the agency. So one of the structures that corporate world, the large corporates have come up with to work with this is they have a board, right? So the shareholders have a trouble, they tell the board, and then the board oversees the agency, the management. So for a startup to have a board, it's not economical.
No.
And
it's like a waste of time. Sorry.
It is.
Just YouTube is, sorry, carry on.
It is a waste of time. But you can look at an advisory board, which which is something. Yep. And what they would do is engage with the shareholders and maintain oversight of the business. And again, having a board means getting people involved, and then again, you've got to have confidence that those people will not try and be a controlling people, and those people also have some powers which they may invoke. And you don't want what was his name? William Kerr. William Kerr was the, what was it? Kerr?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It was the Governor General who the one who ousted Whitlam.
You're telling the story, bro. I ain't never heard no William Kerr. I'm not assuming this is something big. Forgive me, my lack of knowledge on Kerr. But that's cool.
So yeah,
so
you don't want someone who's going to oust you or who's going to try and push you out if you're on business.
You're talking about like a Steve Jobs with the Coca-Cola guy, where they all got together and kicked out Steve Jobs of Apple back in the day. You're talking about that kind of stuff.
But you got to brush up on your politics, man.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
So for a startup, it's very hard. And personally, what I'm going to tell you now is, I think from my point of view, the most important factor in deciding what kind of investor do you want. It's not the structure of the investment, it's not the amount of the investment, it's not the payout or the terms, it's the nature of the investor. It's the person and the motivation for that person. So the reason that I actually stood up and wanted to talk to you after that pitch night is because I liked your nature and I liked how you go about things, right? You're humble and you're sort of down to earth, and that's good, and you don't have these fanciful things and all of that stuff, so you're cool. I had that sort of a connection. I thought, well, this is a good person, this is a nice person to sort of think, to have confidence in, right? And so why I say this is because you have
such a cool guy.
You bring on an investor into your business, and if you're not comfortable with them, don't take them on. And if they're not comfortable with you, they should not come on as well, because you're gonna come across these mixed motivations where you're looking at something else and they're looking at much shorter term. And we're in WA. West Perth is the capital of small and micro caps. There's about, of the 3,000 some firms listed on the ASX, 1/3 are within the suburb of West Perth. It's a suburb of 10 square kilometres.
I need you to break this down. What do you mean by small and micro caps? I don't know what that means, but I'm interested to know.
So small and micro caps are, so Woolworths is a large cap, right? A mid cap is, I would say, between 100 million and $1 billion in market value. And that's equity value, right? Because equity stocks, you list that onto the public market, onto the ASX. Small cap is 30 million to 100 million, or 30 million to, say, sometimes 30 to 300 million.
Okay.
Less than 30 million or less than 50 million
is a micro.
Is a micro cap.
And Perth has heaps of micro
Perth has heaps of micro and small cap companies because what these companies do, they have a project.
Oh, right.
They explore. They don't have much money, but they've got a project which has got a lot of value. So someone's got to put in money. They've got to raise equity. The project goes up, and then you'll see something like FMG. FMG was a micro cap 20 years ago. Twiggy had a couple other goes at raising money and having and making a company out of it. He had Anaconda Nickel. I think he had another one. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's lots of these micro caps which list themselves onto the ASX because if your shares are listed, it makes it easier for investors to come in and get out. Then you don't have to deal with we want the business to go this way or that way. That happens once a year at the annual general meeting. Right. So so you get these micro caps, the list. They get a source of investments, a source of capital, and they raise money, go out and dig. If they find something, well, great. The share price goes up because the value of what they find times the probability of can they make something out of it goes up. Right?
So that's literally WA, right?
Yeah, that's WA.
That's literally like the resource sector, as you said. It's quite healthy here. And I was talking with a friend of ours named Maitreya, literally at the table here. He was talking about if you're going to dig for something, there is so much money available to you.
Yes.
To be able to just get investment.
And that's because every business, every sector has a cycle.
Yeah.
A cycle does this. Currently, we are not here, so we are here.
At the top section.
So if 5 years ago we were here, when I first came here, 5 years ago we were here, at that time the WA economy was shit.
I remember that, and everyone was complaining so much. But I knew, because I worked at Rio Tinto with my dad. My dad, he was working for he worked for Hammersley Iron, which then, in Tom Price, which then transformed into Pilbara Iron, for those who have history in the space, which went from Pilbara Iron, then got bought out by Rio Tinto, and Rio Tinto took it over, and they've been running it. It's a low-grade mine now at the main area of where Tom Price is, but they've got another satellite mine site that they've just established, which has the high-grade ore at that location. The interesting thing is every time I was driving those haul trucks, those Komatsu haul trucks, which I did after my second business went bad. sorry, not second, first business went bad. It was very interesting to see that the stockpile of iron that gets left in the reserve sections, where you see those big excavator diggers just cycling through, those stockpiles, they'll just mine heaps of it, go through the processing plant and just pile it up. But then it's like, it's not a bank. It's like you make a deposit reserve. The deposit reserve just sits there. It hasn't gone away. It's just sitting there, and they know it's sitting there. All they got to do is sell it one day. And so it's like you say, like the market waits until it's bad, so they don't sell it. They just hold it, wait for the price to go up. Then they'll take those reserves, and then they'll sell it. It's
a little more complex than that if you get into details, but yes, you get it right.
But seeing it from the practical side, it actually doesn't stop the jobs. They're still hiring people. They're still digging it up. They're still storing it on the side.
And that happens with mines as well. So when you have this, prices go down. Some mines which are up the marginal cost curve, they shut themselves, and because prices are down, people don't want to put in money, i.e. no new digging happening. So if you dig, you find something. If you don't dig, you got nothing.
Right.
So when markets are up, people put in money, more digging, more new mines coming online. So, and that just means that at one point there'll be more supply than demand, and then prices will go down again, and then the mines will shut, and then there'll be more demand than supply, or less supply than demand, and prices
then it'll go back up again, and then people lose their jobs for a while, get upset, then they get their jobs back again, waiting for the. I've seen the cycle twice.
Yeah.
Personally, in my lifespan. So it's quite a long cycle. But
Yeah,
either
yeah,
way,
yes.
it's going on. Yes. So all this money is circulating around Perth in this space for the resource sector. But for e-commerce sellers, for more service-based industries, when you try to raise this kind of capital, it's like
No, this is
a
not
little
the
bit more
space.
sparingly. You know, it's like
It's because, you know, again, going back to what I said, you know, you become your environment, right? So the easier way to change yourself is change your environment, and so so the environment is that we are in WA, and there's a place called West Perth, and that's where if you have a project or want to have a project, or if you understand finance, you end up there. It's a very exciting place to be if you're in the middle of it.
so. This is West Perth. You're saying the guys who aren't in the mining sector still is like backup coin, but you're saying there's other projects where are happening all in the West Perth space.
Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, that's what I said. There's about 1/3 of the ASX is registered in the postcode of West Perth. 1/3 of the ASX. So 1/3 of all listed companies are in West Perth, of all ASX listed companies.
Right.
Yeah, and they've got all sorts of projects. Projects in Namibia, projects in Mali, projects in Zambia, projects in Mongolia. You name a country and we'll find a project, mate.
All right, I didn't know that. So let's go back then and say, all right.
And by the way, this isn't derogatory. WA is it's like if you're in the mining industry anywhere around the world, WA and Perth is like, wow, it's the halo, right? It's the place. And that's why you see, you know, I've got friends who are from Colorado in the US, where mining activity was quite a lot a few years ago, and they've come here. Friends from Canada who used to work in oil and gas, and they've come here. So this is a place this is the premier place.
For this space.
For mining and exploration.
So we're not in mining, we're in the e-commerce space. So I'm really curious to get a perspective of what you think, because we've had a couple of conversations and it's very clear this type of financing structure for equity, the market, it's very different. I know there's a couple other, like there's Better Labs, I know there's the Perth Angels, there's a couple of other ones that are sort of around, but it seems like I think you were saying, where either the early stage business or the business that's just starting to get their feet off the ground, or pre-revenue businesses that don't have anything to do with the mining resource sector, they're kind of at the mercy of the investment contracts or investment terms that come forward, and those that do come through, it's like they take these huge. What's your thought on that space? Like,
So you know, given where you are, you've got access to a limited number of investors, and even if you go out and try and access this investment or capital market, it's coloured by West Perth. So, as you said, you know, a lot of them, they would want, well, okay, we will invest, but when are you going to list on the stock exchange, right? That'll be a time when we'll be able to get out or see some upside or whatever. So, if you were in Surrey Hills, in Sydney, there's a lot more firms that you could actually go out to and talk, or family offices. So, here I'm introducing this concept of a family office. That's basically a guy who's made a lot of money, or a family who's made a lot of money, and they found out that you know, you can actually quantify the risk return and make money by investing. Stock market, private investing, other kinds of investing, real estate investing. So there are these family offices here in Perth which do invest in you know, education startups, healthcare startups, e-commerce startups.
I've seen a couple of those, yeah.
And if you're in WA, I think that's perhaps the space that you look at if you don't want to list yourselves onto the ASX, because there's a lot of obligation that comes with it and there's a cost to that equity. Usually equity costs more than debt.
Yes.
And
yeah,
that
right.
cost, see, time is money. So if it's not monetary cost, it'll be time cost. Yeah, and then that'll make you lose money elsewhere.
Okay, say I'm an early stage business and I can only say it this one way. I've been indoctrinated to say I need a pitch, I need to raise capital with a pitch, and I need to get an investor, because this particular phrase is well established in the startup community. Yep. If you go to Founders Institute, if you go to any incubator, usually what they're trying to do is shove down your throat and say, hey guys, you want to raise this money? Look, let's start a minimal viable product or MVP. Let's get that product into the market. Let's get some numbers behind it so we can put a story together and raise investment for the next round, for the next potential, or raise a seed round. And then they throw this at them and they're like, all right, guys, we're going to have a pitch night. We're going to get all these businesses together, and you're like huddled in with cattle and get on the stage, share your pitch, and people clap and so happy you presented your story and shared whatever hell you've achieved. And the investors are like, I like this one, I'll start a conversation. But then it's like, you're at the mercy of what the investor wants, and so you will do almost anything because you feel like that's the way. And that seems to be a very common phrase. I know I'm sounding a bit against investment. I don't mean to. I just had, let's just say, I've had some difficult challenges around the long-term focus of investments than what the business wants to go.
Yeah, so a lot of the times, and I've been to, I think, 2 or 3 of these pitch nights now, so a lot of the times that businesses or startups or founders that come up and pitch, they haven't got it right, or they haven't thought through. There isn't a need for an investor, or they're too small for an investment, or their idea is just not there, and or they're presenting to the wrong kind of people. So again, it's like if you really want and if you really think that this is a great product, idea, software, whatever, and what I've put into this is more than time, sweat. It's also money, and you can see stuff. You got to have the confidence, and then I'd rather say you go to Sydney and try and present there at some pitch nights there, and contact people, make networks there. You'll be better off.
Just based on this.
Yes, yeah. Yes, and what happens is so usually the larger the investor, the larger their investment deal size, right? And startups, a lot of them, they need 100,000, 200,000, 500,000. This is the size that they want to talk in. At that size, you're not going to come across a lot of professional investors are not going to be there. When I say professional, I mean either they are institutional investors, so for example, a fund that has been set up, run by someone like me 15, 20 years down the line, and that money's come from a superannuation fund or something like that, or some high net worth people. That's an institution. Or another professional investor would be, I'd say, someone who's made a lot of money and they're looking to invest. So those investment sizes don't match up with what you want, right? You want 50,000? No, not going to happen here. You want 100,000? Still not going to happen here. You want 500,000? Okay, you may be able to get some traction. Usually the institutionals, they would put money in sizes of at least 500,000 in the VC side. Anything less than that, and I think you'd be better off applying for grants or incubation or stuff like that. So if you're trying to raise 50,000, nah. You go to family and friends.
Yeah, you're right. I know that when I was there was a private equity discussion going on, and the private equity guys were like, we'll start at 30 million and up, or the lowest will go as maybe 15 mil, because it's
because
not worth
they've
the
got
time.
yeah,
So
it's not
massive
worth
gap
their
between-
time. Yes, and they've raised $500 million from their investors, right? It includes super funds and all of that. So if they start making investments of $1 million each, they need to find 500 investments. It's just not going
That's
to
a
happen.
lot of
Yeah,
investments.
they've got to put money to work, and then make it work, and then take money out, and then return money to investors in a given time frame, right?
So they're under the pump to do a job. And so the startups themselves are then technically they're just feeding the chain of someone else's.
So it helps if you understand the motivation of investors.
Yeah, that makes complete
So,
sense.
so in that case, you don't go around barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, because there was a story, I won't name them right now, where they were talking about, I was just asking because we were looking at getting investment from an institution, and the conversation kind of went like this, where the person who they raised money from was a wealthy individual. The wealthy individual believed in the vision of the company that he invested in to go a certain direction. The founder and his wife wanted it to go in another direction. And one of the things that they were trying to address was they wanted to improve the software to re-add in a functionality that they could see greater potential of improvement within that arrangement. The challenge was that it needed more money, and they were interested to go for another round of investment to gain that money into the business, because it couldn't do it internally off the revenue it was producing. The original investor that had put the money in, which was, I could probably say because it's vague enough, was about 100,000. That investor said, no, we're not going to raise any more, because he knew dilution would be of impact to him, that person, and they had a bit of a shit fight. And so the investor overruled the founding team to not improve the business model, because the investor didn't want to be diluted, which then means the founder had to then figure out how they're going to make the system it currently has to be sold to the marketplace, knowing full well it was a substandard service and system. And that was heartbreaking and painful for the founder, because he knew that person knew.
It is a substandard product, and even if it sells, you're not going to be happy.
And then I thought to myself, wow, there's such a misconnection there. So the founder was in discussions with the investor to then buy out that investor with money he didn't have, which then was a complete distraction from building that business. And I just thought to myself, wow, that sounds really that sounds so
Doesn't
bad.
that sound like you hooking up with a woman you met at a pub, and you had a drunken night, and then you got married in Las Vegas, and then 3 or 4 years down the line you're having this big fuck up divorce, and whatever you had is gone, and you've got to go back to the car you had when you were 18?
Yeah.
So it's down to decision making.
Yeah, it's true. Then there was another story I heard from a friend of mine who I knew from the morning startup community here in Perth, who left Perth many years ago to go to the east coast of Australia somewhere. And his conversation, to be kept private again, was around the fact that they had done really well with the business structure, but he knew that there was a limited amount of market opportunity, and he wanted to increase the market opportunity by pivoting the direction into this other space. And the investor who invested in it was going with the original direction, which seems to be a commonality. Yep. Like the investor believes in the initial pitch, wants it to go that way, recognizes that the founder had found errors in his initial assessment, and then is like, we need to change our assessment and make a redirection to be able to increase revenue. But then a disconnection happens, and then he was one of a couple of shareholders, and so he was talking to the other shareholders to discuss about them negating the new direction, which then took him away from business growth and then dealing with politics of these other shareholders to try to appease and say why it was a good idea to change. And I just thought to myself, what a head fuck.
Well, it's a cost.
Yeah.
That's the cost of equity.
And look, if I knew investment raising for equity sales of shares was a good idea, and I heard more positive stories, like I would support it more. But I'm just hearing.
Look, the reason you're not hearing more positive stories is because of the inherent risk in the business model, right? So, for example, now I'm going to quantify things, right? I'm a fund manager. I've raised money, and I want to invest. If I invest in the broad stock market, which has got all kinds of companies, I can expect to make 8%, and my risk would be, by a standardized measure, would be, say, 16%, right, or 15%. If I want to then take on more risk, I go into smaller companies. My risk will be 23%. I make 12%, right, return on 23% risk. Then I go into, say, more risk. I want to go into smaller companies, or I want to go into private companies. Well, then I can't get in and get out of that equity pretty easily. It takes a lot of time. So my risk is 30%, and my required return to commensurate with that risk is 15%.
Just could you give a bit, when you say 30%, you mean like 30% of the capital that you have raised? So like if you raised $50 million, 30% of that 50 million would go to the...
No. So I'm saying let's just take a standardized measure of risk. I'm not going to go into the technical details of it because that's financial engineering stuff. But it's called deviation and standard deviation. And so if you, like, stocks go up and down in value. So if you have a private business, you think, what's the value of it today? What's the value of it tomorrow? And although it doesn't seem like it changes, but if you want it to change, you can think about factors and how it is to change and all of that stuff. Leave that. Sure. Let's just say risk and return. Higher the risk, higher the return wanted. And startup is inherently, even if you have investors, if you don't have investors, if you're starting up a new business, there's a lot more risk involved than Woolworths, investing in Woolworths, right? So they will need more return for that, right? So that's why the terms are harsher than, or for a non-commercial person or a non-investment savvy person, they would seem harsher. They wouldn't understand why is it like this, because the risk is greater. It's much greater than investing in a normal company. Now, to what you were saying, that I'm sorry, what were you saying? I forgot.
I was just talking about stories of where investors were helping.
Yes. So the reason you hear all these negative stories is because, in any case, how many startups actually make it?
My initial statement, without even thinking, was not many. Yes. And I would state that's true. Like,
yes.
The amount of businesses startups.
So now I can quantify this again into, have you ever studied what's called a normal distribution or a bell curve?
I've heard of a bell curve where, like...
Yes. And in the middle is the mean, and the mean is, the average and all of that stuff. It applies to a lot of things. A lot of things in life. People, demographics, investments, everything. Okay. So, it can be different from that, right? It can be skewed to the negative. It can be skewed to the positive. And startup investing or startup space in itself is not a normal curve. It's skewed to the negative. So for 1,000 startups, let's just assume one makes it to the unicorn stage. And if you have 2010, 1,000 startups in Perth, 2020, off of those 1,000, only 3 made it alive. Only 3 still exist. Off of them, one is a Canva. So that's why you're hearing, you're in an environment where over time, no matter what you do, you're going to get negative news, and then you overlay on top of that the investment news. So
and that's the story you hear. Yeah.
So that's the reason for that.
So if, let's just say, for all our friends who are trying to get a product off the ground, and let's say they've done it for 2 years, and they've got a product off the ground, they've got 2 years of traction. and they're like, okay, I know that if I had an extra 150K or 250K of opportunity funds, then I would be able to reinvest into the product I'm trying to build and grow it up and all this kind of stuff. Would you genuinely consider them to try and go out and raise capital in a equity market space, or use other instruments that could be potentially for them?
There's no specific answer to this. I mean, it all very much depends, because the cost to each of these investment structures, equity, it can be different kinds of equity, preferred, convertible. I'm sure you've heard of these things. There's contributing equity, all kinds of stuff. And the smaller the investment size, the less flexibility. The larger the investment size, the more flexibility you have in the type of structure you can offer, you can work with, or whatever. 150, 200K. Yeah, that's tough, man. And unless and just the very nature of the environment you're operating in, there's more chances that you will, well, statistically speaking, you'll fail. That's statistics is the bell curve, right?
It's shit news, and I know you guys don't want to hear it, but
then again,
it's the reality of the thing.
Yes. So, but then again, if you don't fail, well, then there's a great big upside, right? And why, as a startup founder yourself, you could have, you had some time sweat that you put into starting up this business, and then you put in some money in it as well. But alternatively, what you could have done is that you have your job at local government and you put your time sweat in there, and then you become CEO of the local government, you make 200 grand, you get given a Lexus to drive around, save money, invest in the markets, you make 10%, and over 20 years, you're at, from whatever you had, nothing, you're at, you've got 1 million. You can take that, or you go, okay, I take my time and effort into a startup, I take more risk, so I'll get more return. And then you got to try and work with the curve, right? Make the best of the opportunity such that the probability of you succeeding goes up. You believe in yourself. It's a behavioral bias kind of thing.
Oh yeah. It's right.
I like behavioral
science. It's right in there. Yeah.
Right. You believe in yourself. That's why you take that risk and you leave this local government job that's going to take you to a Lexus and $1 million in the bank, right? Right. That's why you take this risk. So you got to understand that, man.
I support what you're saying. Like, after 10 years of listening to the potential of raising capital and like going on through this, and it took me a while to be. I'm not against raising capital in an equity.
And not everyone needs to raise capiple. A lot of people who do, they don't need it. They shouldn't.
You're absolutely right. I'm a big fan of the debt structures because the controlling factors are much more simple. It's just money comes in, interest is requested, payment is done.
Yep. And that is all about cash and cash flow. No matter the story, the sector, the this, the that. Yeah, there's some things in there, but all they want to see, where's the money, where's it coming from, where's it going to, how much is left, how much can you do? Okay, let's put that. Serviced. Yeah. Let's put that down on a sheet of paper. Yep. Do we like it? Yep. Tick. You get the money. But for equity investors, they want to see the story because they get to participate in the upside. Yes. Debt ones, they don't have any upside. They just go. If you need debt, take your business, throw it away, leave the cash flows, put that on a piece of paper. The better you communicate those cash flows to the debt investor, the bank or whatever, more your chances to getting money, more money you can get. But for equity, you got to sell the story, and you got to sell yourself. Because the story changes as you go, man.
Oh, absolutely.
5 years ago, I was in a deep shit. So 5 years ago, I couldn't have sold myself, but today I can try and sell myself. So you got to sell yourself. It's not the startup only or the idea only. It's the person.
Look, I respect the growth you have had since you've. Look, just the fact that you just come to Australia, it's very clear you're a very intelligent individual, and in aspects of all this, it's clear to know like where this is going, like, and I got a feeling we're, how to say this? We're Blue Capital?
Bluemount.
Blue Mountain is, fuck, I'm so bad with names. Where Blue Mountain is in with all the other ones. I think there's one called Sea Breeze or something, where they're here in Perth as well, and there's the one that Owen's got as well, which is a family family office. Family office. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. The point is, like, I had to have my mentor tell me, like, stop trying to raise money. Just focus on growing your company and take care of your people. And it's like, use your revenue to build the company. And that is such a hard message to hear, but it's connected to, I feel like it connects to the same thing when you were buying and selling cars and just trying to make the grit and the how to say it, just make it work with what you have available. And I also agree with what you're saying. Like, I think it's very respectful. See, a lot of founders I would know in the beginning will be like, oh, I'm not going to get a job. But I think it's really respectful to have a part-time job with someone else that pays you money to pay for the business. And I feel like that's such a smarter way to go about it, because even though you're not putting 100% in, the money produced from the job helps fund the business without losing any equity. It's a smaller drip effect, but it helps build the thing. You know what I mean?
Yes, there's lots of decision making in this, and as with life, sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. All you can do is make sure that when you're right, you win big, and when you're wrong, you cut your losses. You don't want to stick on to losers. Yeah.
All right, we've been talking for so long, and I love it. But just for the time factor here, there's people that'll be listening, and just for a call to action, if they're in this space and they're interested about raising capital, or they're interested about going down this road and working this through, what would be your supportive action that they could take today to help grow their business?
Well, if you want to go down this road of raising capital, well, get yourself acquainted with the capital markets, how they work, and it's not just going onto YouTube and hearing more startups telling you that they raise money or this or that, or TED Talks. It's actually, you've got to study this thing. Investopedia is a good place to start and start learning about what these different investments are and how do investors think. If you want to do that, you've got to understand the motivation. The best way to do that is you've got to go back and study some of it. That would be a very good place to start, because then you actually know what is expected of you and whether you would actually think that you can do that, confidently or not. Apart from that, well, understand that you've taken the risk of, a startup where you have 1,000, 10 years later, there's only 3 surviving. So,
Love it.
Yeah.
Look, Jaideep, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate the fact that you're right where you're saying, when you see these people that raise money, it's very easy to get very jealous. Like, how did that guy get $500,000? It's not fair. And get really passionate about, like, if he can get $500,000, so can I. But then it's like, you don't see the terms, you don't hear about the conversations, you don't know the politics, and you definitely don't know where the story's going to be. And
usually it's not an overnight thing that you get.
No.
Even for large companies, things are in the pipeline for years and years. And what's always good is for you to network, right? The more you network, the more people you come across, and then they will have investments, or someone will have an investor, or whatever.
Cool. Dude, I'm going to cut it there, and so we'll let it go. But thanks so much for coming on, man.
No worries. I love you, Jesse, and not in a literal sense.
That's okay. It's been amazing. All right, mate.